Hi, welcome to my channel, Lily Makes Stuff. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make the Calypso Kimono Cardigan. You might hear some surf in the background. I know most people don't associate the beach with the need for a sweater, but I tend to freeze even at the beach with the air conditioning. This kimono is light and airy enough that you should be able to wear it in warmer weather without roasting. But if you walk into air conditioning and are freezing, you can wrap yourself up in it and feel pretty comfortable. So if you've watched my latest patterns and projects, you'll know that I have started not using a traditional stitch count for a specific size. This is going to be based on your measurements, your body's measurements, and which makes it really nice to be able to use all kinds of different yarn. You don't have to specifically use the yarn that I used, and it will be completely customized to you since you're going to be using your measurements. This is the yarn that I used, and I will give you some information here. This is the Noro Silk Garden Solo, and I have two different colors here. Color 68C and 60A, and they consider this a medium weight, and I think I had to Google this to see what they recommended for a crochet hook. I think it was like a 5 or a 6. I have actually used a 9. I wanted my stitches to be really loose and airy. I used almost 2 skeins of this for the collar, and then I used almost 7 skeins of this for the main body of the kimono. So besides the yarn and your hook, you will need a tapestry needle, you will need scissors, and you will need stitch markers, which you don't necessarily have to use these nice plastic ones. You can cut off a length of yarn about like this long and use them in the place of stitch marker, the plastic stitch markers. Because this is not a traditional, again, pattern where you have a specific stitch count, number of rows, that's going to be based on your measurement. So the stitch markers, or having some way to keep track of your stitches and your rows, is going to be pretty important in this video. So if you like what you see in this video, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I do also have a Facebook page where I would love it if anybody posted pictures of any of the projects that you made, any questions, any comments. Would love to hear from you guys. Okay, Barbie's going to help me with our first measurement. It's going to be measurement A, which is going to be the sleeves. And you're going to go from shoulder to halfway between the chest and the belly button, and then times 2. So I used chest instead of boobs. I was trying to get away with not having to say boobs. But it's actually like under her boobs to her belly button, okay? And the reason why that is important, and when I am measuring, sorry, from her shoulder, I'm not measuring like from the top. I want to measure like from the middle. Can you see that? Sorry, the middle of her shoulder. Okay, down to, let me mark it. Wow, that lid really did not want to come off. So, like right here, under her boobs or her chest, and we're gonna say this is her belly button, and so halfway between there, okay? So, I'm kind of going over her boobs to make sure the measurement's right. So we're looking at like 2 1/4. Or maybe just a smidge under that, but 2 1/4. You don't have to be that crazy specific, but you do need to know at what point you measured to down here, because further on in the pattern we're going to use that same starting point right there in our measurement, in one of the other measurements. Okay, so just kind of remember on yourself like where you're going to. So for Barbie, if we times her by 2, she'd be at 4.5 inches. Okay, for me, I was 15 inches from here to here, and so times 2 would be 30. So the reason why that's important is because our starting chain is going to be 30 inches. So first thing I'm going to show you is how to do the lemon peel, which is the stitch that we're going to be using for this kimono. So you are going to chain an even number of stitches. There's 5, 6, 7, we'll do one more. 8, okay, and then we're going to do one more for our turning chain. Okay, and in the first stitch you're going to do a single crochet, which is going in the top, yarning over, pulling through, and then yarning over and pulling through those 2 stitches. Okay, and then the next stitch is going to be a double crochet, yarning over, pulling through the first 2 and then the second 2, and then a single crochet, and then a double crochet, single crochet, you go through, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and then pull through the 2 loops. Double crochet, you yarn over first, go through, loop, yarn over, pull through, and now you have 3 loops. You're going to yarn over and pull through the first 2, then yarn over and pull through the second 2. Okay, and then a single crochet, and then you're going to always end on the double crochet. Okay, and then you're going to chain 1. That's your bridge, and to get to the next row, and then you start with a single crochet again, double crochet, single crochet, and you alternate. And again, you're going to end on the double crochet. Okay, so that's how you do the lemon peel stitch. Okay, and that is what we're going to do throughout this project. All right, so to start your initial chain, which will be the sleeve, we're going to work sideways on this project. Normally you go from bottom to top, but this project is sideways. Okay, so you kind of look at it like this. So we're going to start this section right here, which is the first sleeve, and because this is not a traditional pattern, I can't give you specific stitch counts because everybody's size is different, and then you don't have to necessarily use the exact same yarn as me, which is nice, makes it flexible, but it also makes it hard to gauge your initial chain. So I'm going to go over how you can gauge your own project. Okay, what happens is when you do your initial chain, by the time you get to the 4th row, it usually has expanded. And so if you start out with exactly 30 inches or whatever your measurement A is, by the time you get to the 4th row, it might be like 31 inches or 30.5 inches. So I'm going to show you a way that you can kind of gauge your own work. Okay, because we're doing the lemon peel stitch, you need to chain an even number. and it doesn't necessarily, it could be any even number. I know on traditional gauges they try to do 4 inches, but it kind of doesn't really matter. Just want to chain 8, and you're not going to count your little loop, okay? And you're going to measure that. So mine is measuring 3 inches, okay, from here to here. I don't know if you can see that. And then I went ahead and worked up 4 rows, okay? So it went from 3 inches to basically 3.5, okay? So from the chain through the rest of my work, I can count on it increasing about 1/2 inch. So when we do our initial chain, so my measurement A was 30 inches, okay? So I'm gonna make my chain 29.5 inches. Okay, with an even number of stitches, and then I will work the lemon peel pattern. So if if your measurement A, whatever it is, you figure out how much from your chain to the 4th row it increases, and then you're going to make your initial chain just that much less. So my initial chain for the measurement A was 66 chains long. So you're going to want to write down or record somewhere what that initial chain count was, because we're going to need to know that a little bit later on in the pattern. So again, just to kind of repeat the lemon peel stitch, you're going to do an even number, which for me was 66. You chain 1 more. That's your turning chain, and then you start single crochet, double crochet, just repeating that down your row. You're going to end with the double crochet, you turn, and then just repeat. It's a 1 row repeat. Every row you start out with a single crochet, end on a double crochet. And I will meet you back at the end of the first sleeve. Okay, so here's my initial 30 inches. Okay, I can't get it all in there, but from here to here is measuring 30 inches. Okay, so how do you know how many rows to make the first section? Okay, so that's where measurement B comes in. You're going to measure from your wrist to your elbow and take half that distance. Okay. Okay, so I know that not everybody has a second person to help them measure. So here's what I've come up with. I took tape and put it at the end of my measuring tape, and then I put it where I wanted it and kind of taped it to my arm. And then, okay, and when you measure, make sure your wrist isn't bent, make sure it's flat. Okay, and so mine came to 9 inches, okay, and then you divide by 2 or just half it, and so for me it's going to be 4.5. So this measurement B is 4.5. So that's how you know how many rows, okay, to go up. So, yep, so here's my 4.5. It's a little bit wider on the ends, so you can kind of measure in the middle. It's also a good idea to keep track of how many rows that you did. I did 11. Potentially, we have to make another sleeve, so you could just go by the measurement, but if you wanted to make sure that you had exactly the same number of rows on your other sleeve, just count the number of rows that you have on this one. And keep track of that. Write it down where you wrote down the number of stitches that you used. Just don't lose that number. Okay, so the next measurement you're going to need to know is measurement C, which is this section right here. We're going to start on the right side of the kimono now. And where you're going to measure, this is you're going to start at that point right here. That's halfway between your boobs and your belly button. Wherever you went to, that's where you start for this one. And you can go from that halfway distance to the top of your hip bone, which is like right here. So if you feel it's the bone that you can feel in the front, okay? So for me, from this point to this point was 7 inches. So I had 15 from here to here, and then from here to here was 7. So this total distance was 22 inches, okay? So talking about your hip bone, I'm not talking about the bone that you can feel over here on the side. It would be the bone that you can feel in the front. Okay, so for this next section, you have your measurement C. And before we use that measurement, let me show you what we're going to do. So this is the sleeve. This is where I stopped, okay? So went to the end of the row, and then you're going to fasten off, okay? Leave yourself a decent length that you can weave in later, okay? And then once you've fastened off, you're going to lay it down like you're going to start another row, okay? And then, let me get this little tail at least out of the way. You're going to take your measurement C, which for me was 7 inches, and you're going to chain an even number again, kind of like we did from the very beginning. And you want it to be a little shy or right at your measurement C, okay? And you're going to take, so this is 16 chains for me, and you also are going to want to keep track of the number of chains that you use for your measurement C. And then you're going to go right to like the beginning of that row, like you're going to start another row, and do the lemon peel stitch. So you're going to start out just like you do every row with a single crochet, okay, and just add that chain to the next row. And then you're going to work your lemon peel stitch all the way across, single, double, and I'll meet you at the end of your row and show you what we do next. So I've reached the end of the row, so here's where I began. We connected our chain, okay, and then I went to the end of the row and I just ended on a double crochet, and then you're going to just chain the same number of chains that you started out with. So I had 16 here, and I just did my 16, and you're going to chain one more for your turning chain, and then turn your work, and you're basically going to work back into that chain. So just like with every row, here's the starting single crochet, and then I just work the lemon peel stitch down this chain, and then all across the top of the row. It's kind of hard working this needle in there. Okay, so you get the idea. Okay, so just real quick, we stitched the lemon peel across that chain. Keep going across like you would normally, and then I just finished up going across this chain, the 16 stitches, ended with a double crochet, and now I'm turned, and I'm just going to continue to work the lemon peel this way. And the way that you know how wide to make this, how tall to make it, how many rows to make it, is based on measurement D. This is our next measurement, which is going to be basically your elbow to your elbow. Okay, little weird math here. And then you minus 2, and minus 6, the 6 inches right here. So this is kind of your elbow to elbow width. You minus 2 inches, so it's a little shy of your elbow to elbow. Minus out the 6 inches in the middle, and then you divide it by 2. Okay, so these are going to be measurement D. And again, if you have to use the tape, you know, tape the measuring tape to your elbow and then go across like this, okay? And that's how you determine your measurement D. So you're gonna stitch the lemon peel however many rows you need to get to measurement D. For me, it was 11 inches. So I will just continue for another 11 inches. And again, it would be good to keep track of how many rows you're doing, because you will have to know that to repeat it over here. And just to clarify, I did the 16 stitches and then I chained 1 for my turning chain here at the end. So it's just like you've been doing here. There is a even number and then a turning chain at the end. Okay, I have reached my 11 inches for, turn it this way, this section D. Okay, and I kept track of my rows by using stitch markers. Okay, so now this is gonna, the count of stitches that you did to begin with. For measurement A, mine was 66, and then my stitch count for this section C was 16 on each side. So that totals 98. And so the reason why that's important is now that you have reached your measurement D, we're going to find the middle, okay? So 98 halved is 49 stitches, and 49 is an odd number, and we need it to be an even number. So if you half your number of stitches and you end up on an odd number, you can pick to go on either side of that odd number. So my odd number was 49, so I'm picking to do 50 stitches instead of 48 stitches, just a little bit longer, 1 stitch longer. You will need to remember what that stitch count is, because we're going to use it again a little bit later in the next section of the pattern. So just like you remembered the stitch count from measurement A and measurement C, you're going to need to remember this stitch count also. So you're going to continue the lemon peel from where you left, okay? And when you get to your whatever stitch number that's the middle and an even number, put a stitch marker there. And when you get to the stitch marker, that's going to be the end of your row, and you're going to stop there and then start another row until you get 6 inches. This is our neck. This is our neck opening that we're going to be making, okay? And so I just, everyone is going to be a 6-inch neck opening. So I've just worked a double crochet, how we end every row, since it's an even number, into where my stitch marker is. And so now I'm going to stop right there, do a turning chain, turn my work, and continue the lemon peel stitch back across the row. So you're now going to start and stop the rows in the middle, okay? And that's going to be our neck opening, and we're going 6 inches. So I just got done with the neck section, this 6 inches. That is what we're looking at. This edge is this edge, and this edge is on the inside. Okay, now at the end of my 6 inches, I ended up on the outside, or this edge right here. Okay, and to do this next part, we need to be on the inside of the neck. So if you finished your 6 inches and you're on the inside of the neck, this part up here, then you can kind of skip this next little section. We're going to have to work our way back down here so that we finish on the inside of the neck. Okay, so now I've worked my way back down and I'm on the inside right here of the neck section. Okay, so now what you're going to do, this is where the stitch count for this whole width I had was 98, and then this section I did 50 stitches. Okay, so that would leave 48 stitches right here for this side, or you can literally just count your way down this side and verify what the stitch count is. And once you've done that, so mine's 48, you're going to chain 48 stitches. Okay, I won't make you sit through all 48 stitches. Okay, so here's my 48 stitches. This is the other side of my neck. This will be the front of the sweater. So once you've done your 48 or your matching stitch count to this side, okay, we're going to do like we did before. At the end of the chain, you're going to chain one more for the turning chain, and then you're going to start the lemon peel again. So single crochet, double crochet. So you're going to work your way all the way back down, and then just continue your whole 98 or your whole stitch that you did on this side. Okay, and you're gonna do the lemon peel until you reach measurement D, which for me was 11 inches, or you can count the number of rows that you did before and then repeat the number of rows here. So you want this side to match this side. So however you want to do it. If you want to do measurement of, measurement D, or if you used stitch markers and you know the number of rows, you can just repeat the number of rows. Okay, I'm going to try and fit all of this in the camera. So I have just completed this second D section, okay, which is, here's my neck opening. This is the inside of the sweater, okay, and so I matched the number of rows and the measurement from the first one. Okay, so now we have to do the second sleeve, which if you were wearing the cardigan, the kimono, it would be the left side. Okay, so the side I finished on is this side, the bottom left. So on the first sleeve, this measurement C for me was 7 inches, or it was 16 stitches. Okay, so you are going to figure out from whichever side you end on. If you end up on the front bottom or the back bottom, it doesn't matter. You're going to do the same thing because your sleeve is going to be right in the middle of this section. Okay, so my stitch count along this edge was 98. Okay, and so you're going to want to do the left sleeve right in the middle. So to match the other sleeve, it was 16 stitches. Okay, I am going to slip stitch back across. Okay, so this would normally be where, if we were doing the lemon peel, I would do a single crochet double. So I'm going to do 16 slip stitches to start the next sleeve. So you just go in the top of the row and pull straight through. Top of the row and pull straight through. Those are slip stitches, okay? And you're gonna do that measurement C, or whatever your stitch count was right here. Okay, so I just slip stitched 16. And now we are going to start the next sleeve. So you start the lemon peel. So you're going to chain 1, and in the next stitch, you're going to do your single crochet, next 6 double crochet, and you're going to repeat that across your measurement A. My stitch count for measurement A was 66 stitches, okay? So I am going to lemon peel across here 66 stitches, and then that should leave my remaining 16, which will match this French section. Okay, so I just finished the first row of the last sleeve. Here's my 16 slip stitches. Started it, went 66 stitches, which left me 16 stitches here. Okay, so, and you should be ending on a double crochet, just like all your other lemon peel rows. And you're going to continue the lemon peel rows until you reach the same row count or measurement as your first sleeve. Okay, yeah, so just make sure your second sleeve matches your first sleeve. Okay, I just finished my second sleeve right here. Okay, and so now we're going to sew up the sides, which will be this right here. Okay, so I am just going to make sure I cut a finishing length of about 3 times that. Okay, and then we're going to use what I just cut as what we're going to do to sew up the sides. Okay, now with this stitch, I can't really tell a right side or wrong side. Okay, but if you can, make sure that you do the right sides together. Okay, and now I'm going to join. This is my sleeve. This is the top of the sweater, and this is the bottom of the cardigan. Okay, and now you're going to need your tapestry needle. Okay, so now I've got my yarn and my tapestry needle. I'll show you how to weave in this, or weave up the sides. Okay, I rearranged it. So this is the outer edge of the sleeve. That's the bottom of the sweater. Okay, and you're going to take and do the mattress stitch, which is, this is like lacing up a shoe. So you just go from one side to the other, from the inside to the outer side, back and forth. Okay. So inside to out, back and forth. And after you get done doing this side, then you do the other side, and then we will start in on the finishing the collar. Okay, now the sleeve is sewn up and the side, and we're at the end. If you want to, you can go ahead and weave in your end. This is another end I've got to weave in later, but this is how you're going to weave in all your ends. Just work it down in your stitches, kind of double back on itself, and then cut it. Okay, you can weave in the ends that we've accumulated at this point, or just wait till the end. For the other side that doesn't have the attached yarn, I just secure it to one end, and again, you want about triple the length of yarn that you are going to be sewing up. And on one end I make a knot, and then just leave a tail that I can weave in. And then you're going to just use the mattress stitch the same way, going from one side to the other, and then weave in your end and then cut it. Okay, now we are going to work on the collar. Okay, this is the top of the sweater, and I'm going to switch colors, and we're also going to switch stitches. I'm going to use the same size hook, but we are now going to do the moss or the linen stitch. So first thing we're going to do is do one row of single crochets all around the inside of the collar. So this is the bottom right front, and I'm going to do single crochets all up this edge, around this neck, the back, and then down the front. So we have an even number of stitches on this side, but when you are working the single crochets across this section, you want to make sure that you end up with an even number so that our moss and linen stitch will still work. So I'm going to join my yarn right here at this side. It doesn't really matter which side you join your yarn on. To join your yarn, you're going to start in the first stitch, pull your yarn through, and then do a slip stitch. Okay, and then we're going to work single crochets. So I'm going to chain one and work a single crochet into that very same stitch, and then I'm going to do my single crochets right over top of that tail so I don't have to weave it in, and work your way up to the top. So I just worked this row of single crochets up both sides, and remember, not only do right here this neck section, it needs to be an even number, you also want to make sure that your side sections have the same number, so everything's even. So this should be an even number. Mine was 48, and then 16, and then 48 down here. Okay, and so now we're going to start the moss stitch, and to do that you are going to chain two, turn, you're going to skip the first stitch and work a single crochet into the second one, and then chain 1, skip the next stitch, work a single crochet into the next one, chain 1, skip the next stitch, work a single crochet. And that is how you do the linen stitch, and you're going to do this all the way around, and I'll show you what to do when you get to the end. Okay, so down to the last stitch, there's a single crochet here, a chained 1, skipped 1, working a single crochet into the last stitch, you chain 2, turn, and work a single crochet into that space. So here is the single crochet, the chain 1, single crochet. Now as you work over top of that row, you work into that space that was created, okay? You do a single crochet, chain 1, and then work into the space. Chain 1, work into the next space. So the chain 1s are basically going to be over top of the single crochets from the row below. So now when you get to the end of the row, you're just going to work in the space. Okay, so still chain 1, skip over the single crochet, and then do a single crochet at the end, chain 2, and then you're just going to repeat that pattern. You're going to work the moss stitch until you have 3 inches. Okay, if you don't want it quite that wide, you're welcome to stop at any point, but 3 inches is what I made mine. And then once you have reached your desired width, we're going to just fasten off. Okay, and then you're going to weave in all your tails like I showed you earlier. And we have reached the end. That is how you make the Calypso Kimono Cardigan. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more upcoming projects.